Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Audit Committee to order, and I'm going to start by saying that the City of London, this is a COVID-19 virtual meeting, but we are committed to providing accessibility. If you need communication supports or any information for a council standing or advisory committee meeting, upon request, we will provide it. To make a request, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. I'm going to start by looking to the members of the committee to see if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. If you're not on the screen, just raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any. I did see that Councillor Turner had joined and then dropped off, so hopefully he can rejoin the call. We may need to pause briefly to sort out the technical difficulties there. We have no consent items. We have no scheduled items. We do have a number of items for direction, and I think perhaps, colleagues, it might be easiest to turn it over to the internal auditors for them to go through several of the reports all together, and then we can ask questions and discuss the reports all at once. Some agreement on that? Okay, take it away. Mr. Price, is it going to be you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was just finding my mute button. Sorry about that. So I'll go ahead. And right now, we do not have any reports for this meeting. You'll find in your package the updates for the meeting, which I am just opening. The first is the internal summary update memo, which talks to the dashboard and the fact that we have 3 projects that are underway. And I guess you can refer to the dashboard as well if you have that. And it indicates that we have 3 projects that we've initiated with completion between now and December. Is the police services review, assumptions and securities assessment, and the perfect mind reconciliation process review. And the projects that have completed this quarter include the 3 projects that were reported. I think this has not changed since last meeting, but those 3 projects listed: the CMMS system, the Service London that was delivered last meeting, and the class replacement project post-implementation review. So that leaves us with just those items to complete this year. And then the plan is that we would work again in January to update our plan going forward after that meeting, in the agile planning approach that we had discussed at our last meeting.
Any questions about the dashboard or the summary, colleagues? Any discussion? Is there anything in the observation summary, Mr. Price, that you want to specifically mention? Go ahead.
Sorry, there was a question?
Nope, I'm just saying,
okay.
Go
ahead. The only highlight is, or I guess the main message is that everything feels that it, or looks that it is on track, and management is making progress to remediate the items. The one item to highlight would be that management is accepting the risk on the 4 Uranus observations, given the current situation in the long-term homes with COVID. So that would, wait until that situation is under control before moving forward with remediation of those items.
Any discussion about the observation summary report? Any questions? Councillor Turner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? I can't get my video to start, so hopefully
we can hear you loud and clear. Okay. Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. I pulled up to the report from our audit committee back in March, and those 4 observation priority items were organizational design and culture, cross-training, standard operating procedures, and digitization of manual processes and documents. A couple of those I could understand why there might be an acceptance of those risks and postponement. Something like a standard operating procedures. The comment in there is there's a limited number of documented standard operating procedures recorded for clerk roles in the home. That one concerns me a little bit more, and I'm not sure I'm quite ready to accept the acceptance of the risk in that circumstance. Perhaps through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, we could expand out a little bit more. This other one is cross-training, and it says there's an opportunity for formal cross-training to be established beyond that of clerks in similar functions. You would think that perhaps in pandemic situations where it is creating pressures, operational pressures in the organization, that cross-training would be a really important component as well.
Let's see if there's any comment first from the internal auditors about management's progress, and then I'll look to see if there's someone from city staff who wants to weigh into the discussion. Mr. Price?
No, I was just going to say, I believe those are good comments, so I don't have anything to add from that perspective.
Okay, who would like to handle it from city staff?
Through the chair, it's Ms. Bourbon. I think I'll take a stab at it. So in terms of moving forward on those, the intent was that in terms of trying to get a deadline that we would finalize all that work. I've understood that this would be in those areas where we could continue, that we would still continue to try to move towards documenting those procedures. But a number of the observations referred specifically to consultants where there was some additional work required to have a consultant come into the home and provide some additional assistance. And given the limitations on consultants coming into the home right now, that is the work that cannot continue. So certainly it is management's intent to oversee that work, to have it continue as soon as it's possible. And to the extent that we can, under the current circumstances, we would be looking to continue that work. So that was certainly the discussion that we had with the management team at Dearness, was that there were some areas specific to consultants that were very problematic in having that work continue. But to the extent that we can continue that work, we will be. The deadline for trying to achieve that was where there was some struggle to advise exactly when that would be completed given the COVID situation.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Turner, but I will say, this is an ongoing item. It may be possible to have management from Dearness Home to come to our next meeting to discuss it in more detail. What's happening in terms of the obstacles to going ahead with how quickly it could be done. And I just raised that as a possibility. Councillor Turner, do you have anything else on that topic?
Deputy Mayor Helmer, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm not ready to accept that. I appreciate the explanation from Ms. Bourbon. The dashboard itself provides for different categories. Observations closed per management, closed per internal audit, in progress observations, not due, or past due observations. I would like that moved into at least the in progress observations. I'm not ready to accept those risks. And I'm not sure how we dispose of those things. I mean, recognizing these are reports for our information, but I don't know if how we might return that back as directive for the administration.
Ms. Livingston.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to note that Mr. Dickens is valiantly trying to connect, and he may be able to provide additional information for the discussion. So if we could just give him a moment to try and connect, it might be helpful.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Any other questions or comments about any of these reports? If not, let's maybe just wait a moment and see if we can get Mr. Dickens into the meeting. I think I see him there, but he's not unmuted yet, so.
Through the chair, sorry, I had problems connecting to the meeting and I missed the question that was posed. If someone could repeat it, I'd be happy to speak to it.
I'll go to Councillor Turner if you could just recap your question.
Absolutely. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Dickens. The question is with respect to the audit findings that management accepts the risk of the 4 medium observations that were observed back in February. I raised the concern that a couple of these observations and those recommendations are rather important, I think, for the operation of Dearness Home. Specifically with respect, there's the 4 observations were organizational design and culture, cross-training, standard operating procedures, and digitization of the manual processes and documents. I can understand the organizational design and culture and digitization of manual processes and documents are ones that might be things that go on for a long time. However, cross-training and standard operating procedures I think present a fair liability to the organization. And especially right now in light of COVID, cross-training and the ability to move staff between roles is really important where you find shortages, where you might find absenteeism, or you might find repurposing of staff into new things that need to happen in a different model during the pandemic. So I'm not quite ready to accept that management accepts the risks for these, and we have moved it out of the columns of an in progress. So I'm wondering if you might be able to comment on why we're not keeping those in the columns of in progress observations, not due or past due observations.
Thank you for repeating the question, and through the chair. So the positions in question are actually positions that are more clerical in nature. And through the course of our response to the COVID pandemic and the way we've been able to maintain operations in the home, some of the cross-training has already occurred. However, the cross-training has been more specific to how we're going to support the residents and the sustainability of the home as it relates to our COVID and healthcare response. So in the audit, you are correct. Those are priorities of the home. However, given our need to focus our efforts on a healthcare response and noting that these positions recommended and as part of the scope were very much clerical in nature, we are deferring them out until such a time as we have the capacity and the ability to focus our efforts on those areas outside of focusing our efforts on strictly the healthcare right now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, would you have any concerns with moving this column from management accepts the risks to in progress observations not due, which gives you latitude for timing for completion, but doesn't wipe them off the obligation to have those completed?
Thank you. So certainly, I think that would be a reasonable approach for us. It is something that we do intend to still get to, and something that we still think is valid as part of the observations through the audit. So moving them to the appropriate column would not really impact our services in the moment or in the short term. Certainly providing us the flexibility to get to them when it is reasonable to do so is our priority at this point.
Let's go to Mr. Price. Perhaps you can just speak to how those items get categorized as you have categorized them, and what's involved in reclassifying it to say this is delayed, but we're still intending to make progress in the future on those observations.
That, through the chair, that should not be an issue, changing those to in progress. On a go-forward basis, they would just show as items that are past due, but there'd be an explanation that it's been discussed at the council meeting and the reasons noted.
So perhaps I hear a motion from Councillor Turner to just amend the status of the observation around Dearness Home to be in progress rather than management accept the risks. And I appreciate, Mr. Dickens, you joining the call so we could get a bit of a deeper context into what's going on. And certainly something we can discuss at future meetings as well as progress is made and as the situation changes. Councillor Turner, do you want to move that?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. Thank you for phrasing that for me. It's quite helpful.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Ms. Higgs, thank you very much. Any discussion on that particular motion? Okay, then we're going to vote. I'm going to start with Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Van Holst. If you're trying to speak,
Yes.
You're muted. Thank you. Councillor Morgan?
No.
Vice Chair Higgs?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor. Okay, so that motion carries. Any other discussion? Okay. Can I have a motion to receive those three reports with the one as amended with the motion from Councillor Turner? Okay, Ms. Higgs has moved that. Seconder, Councillor Van Holst, thank you. Any discussion about the overall reports? Okay, all those in favor, we'll just do a hand vote. Let's see. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, Councillor Turner, yeah, okay, so everyone's in favor. That carries. Any additional business? If not, I just wanted to say this is my last audit committee meeting as chair. I appreciate the work that everyone has done over the years. On the audit committee, I know that sometimes the meetings are quite dry, but they're important. And I think the committee has been doing a great job up to this point. I have put in my name to see if council will reappoint me. I don't know if there's other people who want to get onto audit committee. If there are, I'll make way for them and they can have the fun of working with everyone on the committee and the staff and the auditors. But I do want to say thanks very much for your work up to this point. We've been pretty busy. I know that the pandemic has really upended a number of things, including some of the internal audit plans, and being flexible and being able to modify things and focus on the things that are most important, I think has been a real strength of the internal audit process in particular. So that's all for me. I just wanted to say thank you very much for 2 years of audit committee. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Higgs, seconded by Councillor Turner. All those in favor? Okay, everybody's in favor. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.